7th annual Greenhouse Conference. So just curious, anybody here been to all 7? Stand up. Be recognized. Woo! All right. There are 250 of us here this time, and of those, 169 are first-time attendees. So if you're a first-time attendee, stand up. Woo! All right. Welcome. So if you'll notice, there are badges, and on those badges, there is a label that says first-time attendee. So make them feel welcome. We want them to come back next year. I also want to thank Ave Maria. Is Frank Gattuso here? There's Kay. There they are. So Vincent Davis, the surveyors, did you hook that up or what? It wasn't you. So, but we are grateful. Please convey to Frank how happy we are that you have been our gracious host here. I'd also like to thank all of our partners and our sponsors. Jane Lowe with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We are so grateful for your generosity and the support you've given to us over the years. Terry Simonete, CEO of Capital Impact Partners. Really grateful for your support and for the friendship that we've enjoyed as a program of Capital Impact Partners. I want to thank my esteemed colleagues and friends, the Greenhouse Project team, and would you stand, please? Woo! These are the people who have worked tirelessly to make this event happen. We've had a good time bringing it on and really thinking, how can we kick up the dust in Memphis, Tennessee? I want to thank Rachel especially for that video that she put together and really tried to incorporate all your pictures. And last but not least, I really want to acknowledge Dr. Bill Thomas. For you, Bill, we would not be here. And I'm really thankful that you thought life can be different for those needing care in long-term care facilities. And you asked the question, what if I had a blank sheet of paper? So we are grateful for the vision. We are grateful that that's why we're here today, is to acknowledge and to celebrate what we do across this nation to really bring a revolution of elder care. You might have noticed hashtag GHP14. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where are the tweeters? Where are the Facebookers? Let me hear ya. So, all right, there you go. Just want to make sure you're there. So we really wanted to make sure that there were opportunities to celebrate teamwork, to really celebrate the opportunity to network with each other. And so we have a social media scavenger hunt. I love scavenger hunts, and I don't know how to tweet, but I'm working on it. So if you are a tweeter, we want to make sure that you pull out from your handout. There are instructions there. There are prizes to win if you didn't need any incentive. And figure out exactly how you can really be a part of that conversation in the Twittersphere. Is that what you call it? Or whatever it is. But go there and talk about it. This is the power of connection. We are connected to something much bigger than we could do in ourselves. So celebrate that, get to know one another, talk to people from all across the country to see exactly how you too can get an injection, an infusion of mojo to take back to your respective communities. There's also a commitment card. We thought, leading with heart and soul, that we really need to talk about making commitments to lead. And so what are you committing to? What are you taking back to your organizations? And so you will find a table with index cards, and you need to write on that commitment card what you are committing to. We're going to have a good time. There are lots of people to talk about and talk to you. So with that, I'm going to thank our sponsor from Vigil, Beverly Lee. And if you could welcome her to the stage.
sports and played my entire life, and he said, you always want to go last. Anything you do, you want to go last. That's how they remember you. And so I think I'm going to concede this spot and come back tomorrow, if that's okay, if you don't mind. That said, we're very happy to be here, and it is our first time. Vigil is a wireless nurse call, wander monitoring, and dementia system. Our signature dementia system is something that you probably have not seen. I don't want to give you a hard sell on it because we're really excited to be here and learn more about the Greenhouse Project. We're huge advocates of what you do, and it's so nice being here just to see the energy. It's different than any other trade show that I have been to. So my colleague Rebecca Crawley is here with me as well. So if we run up to you and want to learn more, please know we're not trying to sell you anything. We just want to learn more about what's working well for you, what you need. We have our own R&D department, so these are all things that we want to take back. In the same instance, we also want to hear about things that you need, and we can talk to you a little bit about where we see nurse call, wander monitoring, and the dementia system going. So you guys have a wonderful show. Thank you for having us, and please don't run if we run up to you. So thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce a man that really needs no introduction, Mr. Steve McAlilly, CEO of Tupelo, Mississippi Methodist, first greenhouse homes in the country.
Good morning, Greenhouse. My name's Steve McAlilly, and I'm a member of the steering committee for the Peer Network, and it's my pleasure today to introduce our host, Mr. Jack Bales. Jack, as he told me was his name when I called him Mr. Bales, is J-A-C-K, is the CEO and chairman of Bales Enterprises, which is one of the South's largest development and real estate companies, probably known most famously for bringing back the Peabody Hotel. And we're glad you did. He's been a long-time booster and activist in downtown development, and the Peabody is credited as being the catalyst for bringing downtown Memphis back. The Orpheum Theater opened. After that, Beale Street was renovated and reopened. And all you have to do now is look around and see the fruits of that labor, and it makes this a good place to be. Being from Tupelo, which is just down the road, which is also the birthplace of Elvis Presley and the Greenhouse, I've spent a lot of time in Memphis, and so I've been enriched by the things that Jack has done here in Memphis. I've seen plays at the Orpheum and concerts at the FedEx building, baseball games at the AutoZone Park, and celebrated milestone occasions at the Peabody. So I'm thankful to you personally, Jack, for the things that you've done here. I want to introduce you to a world changer and introduce Mr. Belts to 250 world changers.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here and to see such a wonderful-looking group of people coming to share their thoughts and their experiences in relating to taking care of the elderly within our society. I think that's a wonderful challenge, a wonderful objective, and I know that you do a wonderful job. I was told a few minutes ago that you have 167 of these houses located within 27 states and growing all the time. That's an average of about 6 for each of the states which have these facilities. I also understand that there's about 10 people living in each one of these homes of some 7,500 square feet, which means that they should have plenty of space for their own personal needs and for shared opportunities and usages within the shared kitchen and dining room and dens and all of the other things which make up a happy life for these people. So I congratulate you on what you're doing. What I thought I would do this morning is to tell you about the Memphis that I remember and see how we came to be the Memphis of today. When I was younger, everything was in downtown, and I imagine it was like that throughout the United States. Memphis was a river town, is a river town, and the development of this city began at the banks of the Mississippi River. And then it grew eastwardly from the river to what it is today. In that connection, historians say that had the yellow fever epidemic not hit Memphis in 1878, that Memphis was destined at that time to be larger than what Atlanta was going to be. And today, of course, we see Atlanta a multiple of what our size is, and it's really an alternate capital of the United States. But it is in the South, so we're happy for that. When I was quite young, my wife, then my girlfriend, Marilyn Hanover, our families lived within 3 miles of downtown Memphis. And in fact, most everyone we knew lived within 3 to 3.5 or 4 miles from downtown Memphis. Downtown at that time was the place where all of the department stores were. There were 4 large department stores and 2 specialty department stores, smaller but handling fashion goods. All of the hotels, there was no motels then, but all of the hotels, the office buildings, and retail stores were located in our downtown. So everyone was always going to downtown to share social events or take care of shopping needs and everything that they needed to do. At about the time of World War II and after World War II, things changed, and this happened throughout our country. Instead of remaining downtown, the exodus began, and this hurt downtown America very much. They started building these glass boxes instead of classical architecture type office buildings and hotels such as the Peabody. They started building the glass boxes, the modern type of things, in office buildings, even stores, shopping centers, and hotels. And that began to leave downtown America, I say downtown Memphis, in a much poorer state than it was originally. At about, actually, we're talking about a period during the late 40s at that point. And St. Jude, I don't know whether you know much about Memphis, but we're very proud to have St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that was started by the late, great comedian and actor Danny Thomas. It's founded in 1962, which was 52 years ago. It's about a mile north of the Peabody. Since that time, when it consisted only of a small kind of an office building, but medical center that housed their patients and all of the research, it has now grown to be about a $2 billion investment. And it's now about a 75-acre campus. It's almost all filled up now, and it's just remarkable what they have done. There's 3,500 employees in downtown Memphis at the St. Jude site. In addition, we have Lubana Children's Hospital, which is one of the finest children's pediatric hospitals in the United States. There's a lot of other wonderful things that are still in downtown Memphis. This would include the AutoZone. You probably have heard of AutoZone. Their headquarters building was built down here during the early times of our activities here in downtown Memphis. And they have about 300,000 square feet of office building about 2 blocks from here toward the river. In addition, as Steve mentioned, the FedEx Forum, the AutoZone ballpark that's northeast of the Peabody Hotel, the Orpheum Theater, Beale Street, the world knows Beale Street, all of these things within very 2 or 3 minute walk of this hotel. And we're very proud of all of those kind of things. We've had our uppers and we've had our lowers. On April the 4th of 1968, a tragedy of worldwide proportions happened in downtown Memphis with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, which also took place about a mile from this hotel. And what happened after that was that there were riots in downtown Memphis. What remaining stores were still there left. The hotels that were still occupied were vacated, office buildings, etc. It was a horrible time in the life of our city. And from that point, we had to begin thinking about what would we do to regain the city that we knew as children, and could we do it? The first thing that I personally got involved in a real significant fashion was the Peabody. The original Peabody, let me mention, was opened at this site on September the 1st, 1925. On November the 1st, 1925, just 2 months later, my parents of blessed memory wanted to get married, and they tried to arrange for the wedding to be here at the Peabody. It was, as I said, only opened a couple of months before that, and they were fully booked, and they were unable to have that wonderful part of their lives take place at the Peabody Hotel. My father always kept that in mind, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. My wife Marilyn and I had our wedding reception here at the Peabody in the Continental Ballroom, which is probably 75 feet from where we're sitting this morning. So that took place on June the 22nd, 1948. That was 23 years after my parents were married down the street from here at another hotel, which no longer exists as a hotel, incidentally. It was one of those many properties that were discontinued as far as their activity is concerned, but it happens to be under construction now for conversion into apartments and some other facilities. In 1975, in the spring, the Peabody Hotel closed. We did not own it at that time, but on July the 31st of that year, we became the owners of the Peabody, which was, of course, then closed. And then we began the process of determining what would we do with this property. Many people suggested we tear it down and make it into a huge parking lot to go with the bus station, which, thank goodness, is no longer near us. It was a very prominent thing, the bus station, and all of the things that are bad about bus stations took place there. In any event, I began thinking about what could we do with our downtown. I've described to you that we had no longer any department stores. The only hotel left downtown was the Peabody, which was then closed, and a couple of other little motels or whatever you'd want to call them as, but nothing significant. So I envisioned at that time some form of shopping mall development which would connect to the Peabody and would extend toward the river and encompass about 8 square blocks of property. We began the process of acquiring all of the land that we needed to make this possible. We had no reason at the moment to think we would be successful in it, but we had a feeling that it was possible, and it was absolutely essential that we do whatever we could to bring back our downtown. Thank goodness we were successful to a large extent, and there were a couple of other developers that got into the thing, and they made their contributions. And on September the 1st of 1981, which was exactly 55 years to the date from the original opening of this hotel, we reopened the Peabody. And it was an exciting moment. It did not have at that time this ballroom that you're in a part of. In fact, the largest space we had was the Continental Ballroom, which is about, I'd say, a third the size of this particular room. And that was the biggest space in Memphis in which you could have a social event or a big meeting or something like that. So we were able to open the hotel, reopen it, September 1, 1981, as we said, bigger and better and more beautiful than it had ever been. We used to have people come up to us after we reopened and say, "You really made it just like it used to be." Well, it never was that nice. But people have a way in their life to remember the good old days when many times they were not really good old days. They were just old days. But in any event, we were very happy with the welcoming that the community accepted the Peabody. And once again, as happened in 1925, everyone wanted to have their events, weddings, anniversaries, school reunions, and things of that sort here at the Peabody, and thank goodness that continues to this very day. You are an example of the types of organizations that choose to come to Memphis, Tennessee, and celebrate themselves and celebrate our community. And we hope and pray that this will continue on indefinitely. As I was telling Susan right before I came up here, it is Susan, isn't it? Yes. I had not decided exactly what I was going to talk about this morning, but I hope it would come out okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I spend a lot of time at the Peabody. Number one, our office building, which is a part of what we call Peabody Place, is about a 2-minute walk from the corner of this hotel that way. And we have a 16-story office building. We don't use it all. We have tenants, thank goodness, who are paying rent to help us on the mortgage. But we are a very short distance, and then I come over here about 4 times a week, sometimes 5 times a week, to exercise in the gymnasium, and I am teased and taunted constantly because of the fact that what you see me wearing this morning is what I exercise in also. I have established a new dress code for the Peabody Gym. Soon we will not allow people without a necktie on to use our machines. At any event, I again wanted to wish you a wonderful convention and thank you sincerely for bringing it to Memphis. And I wish all of you to return to your homes in good health. And next year, come here with not having 167 houses, but 267 houses. That's a challenge. but I don't want to be a partner. I'm out of the business now. Thank you. Thank you all.
Wow, what a visionary. And how remarkable it is. I mean, as he was describing Memphis, what it used to be, you could almost just get a picture and a flavor. The really cool thing is that we will be having our lunch tomorrow in the Continental Ballroom. So we will be thinking of you, Jack, and your wife as you were getting married in the Continental Ballroom. Our next speaker is someone who's become not just a boss, but actually a real friend. And he's the CEO of Capital Impact Partners. Capital Impact Partners has been really good to the Greenhouse Project. And so I'd like to welcome our friend, our supporter, our partner, Terry Simonete.
Mr. Belts, that was not only okay, now the rest of us have to follow your very eloquent remarks. Me first. Good morning. Good morning to my old friends. Good morning to the 160 plus of you that are first-time conference goers today. I hope we also become friends. First thing I too want to do is welcome you to Memphis and the 7th Annual Greenhouse Conference. Capital Impact Partners has been with most of you since the beginning of your journey, and hopefully will be with you new adopters through your journey as well. And we have yet another opportunity today and tomorrow to celebrate your accomplishments and to also explore what our future might be together. As you know, the Greenhouse legacy began more than 10 years ago with Steve McAlilly. There's Steve. Mississippi Methodist in Tupelo, Mississippi, when they boldly undertook, and I mean boldly, the first greenhouse prototype. They not only succeeded, but set a mark for all of us to emulate. This was a path for culture change which was conceived of and developed by our good friend, Bill Thomas, who believed that thousands of people were dying needlessly in nursing homes every year simply because they had broken hearts and because they had lost their grip on life. And in his inimitable way, Bill Thomas imagined a new system. Imagine Bill Thomas imagining just about anything that could build, that could power, and could move the skilled nursing industry to a new, enlightened approach to caring for older adults. That's what we've accomplished here. And that path was further paved and developed by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the resources and the leadership that they provided. And believe me, without those resources and without the unswerving dedication of the foundation to the principles that underpin this initiative, we would not be in this beautiful hotel today, nor in Memphis. So let me specifically acknowledge our collaborator, Jane Lowe. She's been a champion for change throughout all these years, and her guidance has really been integral in every way in this process as we've come through this journey together. But most importantly, this morning, to each of you that have traveled the path, combining the will and perseverance of so many good people in your organizations, so many good people in your communities, you have our respect and you have our gratitude. You have all focused on engineering change that would ultimately create a more nurturing, a more dignified, a more respectful environment for the elders whose well-being you've devoted your organizations for. You are the ones on the ground. You are all in the trenches. You are making meaningful moments matter. Capital Impact Partners has had the opportunity to both join with you as the administrator of the greenhouse and as a conduit for project finance. As your program administrator, we've developed policy and practice initiatives and tools and worked with and collaborated with each of you in your journeys towards this pinnacle of culture change. And as a source of funds, we've been able to deliver project capital along with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to the Leonard Florence Center in Chelsea, Massachusetts, to the greenhouses in Stadium Place in Baltimore, Maryland, Water's Edge in Mankato, Minnesota, and to the greenhouse homes at Mirasol in Loveland, Colorado. As a matter of fact, I think my colleague Catherine Groves, if she's not here, Catherine, are you here? There she is. My colleague Kathleen Groves has done most of the underwriting for those projects, and she would love to talk to you if you're interested in project financing. Little pitch. And I know Susan did this, but I too want to congratulate my greenhouse colleagues. They have really worked hard to put this conference together. I see them always spinning and running around our office, and it is always to come together in events like this to support the people that we work with on greenhouses. Let me close by saying this morning that we believe that we're close to a tipping point for the model's success in further development of greenhouses across the country. You have become the gold standard of the small house movement, and now others are looking to try and copy your success. But they're realizing that without the paradigm shift in thinking, in culture, and in practice, which you have embraced and which you are perfecting, the outcome is a pale imitation of what all of you have accomplished. As this pinnacle of culture change, you have the opportunity to leverage our collective learning from research and one another to achieve the vision of a greenhouse home as an option for elders in every community, in every state in the country. Thank you.
So you've heard us refer to this amazing woman called Jane Lowe. I call her the catalyst for social change. She has called the greenhouse movement a catalyst. But Jane, we are so grateful for all the support. She has been the champion, the cheerleader in the corner, just really coaching and mentoring and being a real friend to the Greenhouse Project. So welcome, please, Jane Lowe.
Okay, so I need to do my plug about the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for all of you. Those of you who know us probably know us most by the NPR taglines that get announced often after many programs about the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, improving health and healthcare for all Americans and creating a culture of health. I will not tell you what all that means. You could go to the website and take a look at that, but just so you know, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is the single largest health philanthropy in the United States. We take on big, messy problems. We try to catalyze social change. And just an idea of how big we are, we're not quite as big as the Gates Foundation, but we have about $10 billion in assets, and every year give away about $450 million of those assets. The Greenhouse has been one of our signature programs over the last decade. And as I thought about this, I thought it might be helpful, since there's so many new people in this room, just to take you on a really short journey of how this came about being. So I will tell you that for a very long time, since its inception really, in 1972, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation was really committed to long-term care. And its focus was really on community-based and home long-term care. And we never did anything with nursing homes because really in our heart of hearts, we really wanted there to be a different model for care. But we didn't quite see that model out there until Bill Thomas came knocking at our door in 2000, came to talk to the staff and presented this nascent idea of what an alternative to institutional long-term care could be. So we said, okay, great, let's kick the tires on this idea. We sent a group of staff up to Utica then to talk with him about the financing. Was this really viable? Could you really do this? And decided that yes, the answer to that was yes, we could do this. And then the big question was where? We thought we were going to do it in Utica. And the next thing I know, we're hearing about this guy, Steve McAlilly, in Tupelo, Mississippi. I actually had to go to the map and look where Tupelo, Mississippi was. That was all set to go. United Methodist Senior Services, ready to launch this project, ready to take this on. And in all honesty, I think without it having been in Tupelo, if it had been in New York State, I'm not sure we would have been able to get the prototype for that model. So the prototype for the model was done by Steve and his staff. I remember going to visit the first greenhouse home in Tupelo, and it brought me to tears. It was every place that I would ever want to be, ever want to send a family member to, and that was beginning of this really long journey. So where did we get from that prototype model to here? Well, it's been a journey, and if any of you have ever started up a business, you will know how long it takes to get from the startup prototype to actually the proven model. And that for us has been basically now almost 14 years. And I think what we have learned along the way is that the goal has always been to make greenhouse the new norm for how we think about and care for frail elders. But growing and scaling, and I use the word scale in quotes because we're never going to be scaled like Coca-Cola, but moving it into mainstream is a journey. And we have watched it grow from single houses to multiple houses. We've watched it go vertical in Boston and in Birmingham. We have watched the VA join us and be very committed to this. And now we see others that are looking at this model as a way to care for other populations of people who have needs for long-term care, but who are not elderly. And is this adaptable? And those of you who know the Boston, the Chelsea program know that two of the greenhouses there are specifically one for people with ALS and one for people with MS, so that we know that there's a lot of capacity to move this in a different direction. So over the past years, we've tested new ideas, we've refined this model, and we've gathered evidence. And for us at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, having evidence, being able to say to our skeptics and to other people, this works and here's why it works, and you will hear about the research endeavors that we have undertaken over the past many years, and many of you have participated in these. They will talk a little bit about those results this afternoon. And of course, with evidence, you can actually start to drive policy change. And that's certainly the direction that we are now moving in. So I think that this is a process now that is a proven model, but the challenge is how do we sustain it? And like every business, adaptation, adjustments to the market, adjustments to what people want are really essential. But in that, we also know that we want to hang on to the secret sauce of the greenhouse. So what are those core essential elements of the greenhouse that make it a greenhouse, that give us the results we want? And then within that, how do we think about sustaining and adopting this so that it can continue and it can go on and it can grow? So that's where we are, I think, and I think that all of this comes together at a critical time for us to continue to move the movement forward and recognize that there is an alternative for people where their voices are heard as elders, where people really know who those elders are, and where we can really make a very big difference, especially as the population now gets increasingly older, in the care of people. And I like to think that the ultimate goal of the greenhouse is it will become part of the community-based system of care, so that you will be able in your neighborhood not only to find home care if you can stay in your own home, but also find a greenhouse in your neighborhood where you could also move. So that's the work ahead. But of course, all of this wouldn't have happened without the greenhouse team. Those who have come before, those who are currently here, all of the greenhouse members, especially David, Susan, and Scott for their leadership, have really and continue to make this work and continue to incorporate all that we're learning. Certainly capital impact, which is also where our PRI for the Greenhouse Project is located, has been an essential partner for the last, actually, we've worked with capital impact now for probably 25 years on several different projects, but they've been key to this work. And Bill, of course. We could never forget that he really was our inspiration and certainly inspired all of us those many years ago at the foundation. But really, it's every single person in this room who makes the greenhouse happen every day. It's the Shabazz, it's the administrative person, it's the families who come, it's the patients themselves. That's what makes a real greenhouse. And for that, I especially am really grateful for all the work that everyone undertakes on behalf of our older adults in the United States. So my thanks to all of you, and I look forward to meeting many of you, seeing people that I do know, and spending some time with you over the next day or so. Thank you.
And now it is my privilege to introduce the Senior Director for the Greenhouse Project. David Farrell has been with us almost 2 years, so please welcome David to the stage.
Well, good morning, everybody. Pardon me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be attending my second Greenhouse Conference. Since I attended my first, the year has absolutely flown by. I've learned a lot over the last year. I've traveled so much, I've learned the first names of flight attendants. I've learned which airports to avoid, if I can. But in all honesty, I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about humility. You see, I'm humbled to be in this position. It was just 2 years ago where I was an administrator of a troubled home in Oakland, California. I was painting graffiti. I was picking up dirty washcloths off shower room floors. I was answering call lights, doing everything that I could. I was humbled by that job too, but in a much different way. In Oakland, I was humbled by the immense influence that I could have there. I was humbled by the enormous weight of that realization and humbled by the fragility of it all. Humbled by how I was jerry-rigging it all together. At Greenhouse, I'm humbled by the job because never before have I been associated with such respected organizations as the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Capital Impact Partners and the Greenhouse Project. I'm humbled by being surrounded by the brilliant minds in the profession. And I'm humbled by working alongside the incredibly talented and compassionate people that we have on the Greenhouse team. My father, who's 82, is a nationally recognized venture capitalist, and he's the most humble person I know. I called him last night and told him that for the first time in my life. And he responded that that comes from practice and it comes from self-reflection. And he said, I worked at it. It's not a gene that you inherit. And he said, you should work at it too. I told him that I was working at it, and he said, good, because I've had a lot of contact with healthcare organizations over the last year since I had my stroke. And I'm here to tell you, David, that the best doctors and nurses and probably healthcare managers are humble. And I said, Dad, how do you know? And he said, they make me feel human. Finally, I'm humbled by the opportunity to work with Dr. Bill Thomas and learn from him. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Bill Thomas.
Well, I didn't know David was going to say that, but it's a pretty perfect opening to what I wanted to say. And I wanted to begin my minutes with you talking about the theme of the conference, heart and soul, and what Jane said about the secret sauce. Well, actually, all of us in this room know where the heart and soul of the greenhouse is, and they know the secret sauce. And could I please ask the Shabazim in the room to rise? We are humbled by you. We are grateful to you. You are changing the world. Not long ago, I was in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was doing a meeting there about public policy and stuff like that. And afterward, one of the senior policymakers in the state came up to me and pulled me aside and told me that her dad had lived and died in a greenhouse. And I was humbled. Her dad got to have a life and to be loved. And as much as I respect the policymakers and the administrators and so on, we all know who gave him that life. It was the Shabazim. And I tell you that story, which to the Shabazim in the room comes as absolutely no surprise. It's what you do. And we are grateful to you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to say, in the spirit of gratitude and humility, I want to add another note, another concept, another idea. And that is I want to talk to you for a few minutes before we go about the future and what lies ahead for all of us. I remember when I attended my 5-year medical school reunion. That was a while ago, but I was 5 years out of medical school, and by that time, you know, everybody's sort of gotten their specialty and they're sort of off on their careers, and I'm standing in the backyard of a ophthalmologist in Boston who was my classmate, and people are talking to me about what am I doing, and I told them that I decided to become a geriatrician. And they were like, what happened? You had so much talent. You could have been somebody. And I tell that story because a lot of us have had that experience, you know. The world, as we know it today, of long-term care is so difficult and challenging that the people who can do it well are people who could succeed in any number of other fields. The reason you're doing what you're doing is because you love it. The talent in this room could rise to the top, really, in any other setting. You do what you do because of the heart and soul of this work. Now, here's what I want to say to you about the future. We've long been accustomed to the story of our work being the tail end of healthcare. And there's this truly monumentally silly and actually dysfunctional idea of a continuum of care. And there, in glittering in diamonds and gold, is acute care. And there, way down there, is long-term care. And what's happening in our culture, in our society, in a way that I think is astonishingly beautiful, is that it's beginning to turn. And people in the field of acute care are beginning to say, yeah, I need to know what they know. If we think about the experience David's father reported with the acute care system, it was missing the heart and soul. If we look at a past that was all about the miracle molecule, the miracle technology, the miracle tool that's constantly updating the equipment in the emergency department and in the operating room, and then we look at an infrastructure built to support frail elders that has not changed to any large degree in half a century. If you took all the iPhones and iPads and computers out of a conventional long-term care facility, and you put a person from 50 years ago into a time machine and pop them forward and walk them through the building, they'd be like, oh yeah, I get this. In other words, they would not be amazed. They wouldn't be amazed because it hasn't really changed. And what you're doing, and what makes what you're doing so important, is that you're showing people how it can be different. In the past, the acute care system and the payers and so on, Medicare, they didn't really need it to be different. Now they do. I am saying to you that there's a new era coming where the skills that you have, the knowledge that you have, the experience you have, is going to become more and more valuable as our healthcare system turns away from the old era of more and more and more, and a new era of better and better and better. Alone, among all the people working in healthcare today in America, you are living the experience of better. You do it better than anyone else. And don't take that as a nice compliment. Take a look at the research. You are better. The future of the healthcare system is about making it better. I'll give you an example of how this works and how things are changing. In the past, there was a willingness, really, for companies to spend, $1 billion trying to develop a new molecule that could be used as a drug or a therapy or a treatment. In the past, the hospitals would spare basically no expense to ensure that their operating room was outfitted with the latest technology. Now, what do we have? To a very large degree in American society, we have the drugs we need and we have the technology we need. What's missing? Heart and soul. Nobody wanders around an acute care hospital saying, you know what they need? You know what they need here? They need more technology. That's what they need. Instead, they call, like David's father, they call and say, this place needs more heart and soul. What do the elders need? Love. So the greenhouse, as has been said in the past, the greenhouse is a place where love matters. And it is in making a place where love matters that we actually place our hands on the most crucial innovation in the healthcare system in the 21st century. You are the leaders. You are the pioneers. You are the people they'll write about 3 decades from now. You are showing us a new path away from more toward better, better, better. So in my work and where I'm thinking and coming from, I have this notion that the world of greenhouse is going to grow far larger than it is today and be far more influential. And it won't be me, and it won't be Jane, and it won't be Terry or David or Susan. It will be you. I am going to encourage you today, every one of you, when you get back home, to make time, make a meeting with your acute care system, whoever it is in town, or maybe there's a couple of them, and call them together to sit down and talk about better. They need to hear from you. They need to understand how different you are. And also, they need to understand how much they can learn from you. Basically, you should be, everybody in this room, should be advising local acute care systems on how to get it together. Last thing I want to say. I've also been very interested, and it's been commented on the amount of time we've been on this journey. I've been very interested in my own aging and the aging of people around me. So when I sort of kicked off this whole thing, I was still in my 30s. And now I'm in my middle 50s. And lots changed. I've been talking about aging for a long time. And now I'm increasingly aware of the effect of aging on myself. And this, it turns out, is a good thing. One of my shortcomings as a younger man was a great deal of impatience. I think in some ways it made me hard to be around and sometimes difficult to get along with. I'm still impatient, but I'm more patient with my impatience. I wrote a book this last year, it came out this spring, called Second Wind. And I want to put it forward to you as an idea for your own life and for the greenhouse movement. There's a moment, they say, in a long road race, a running race, where the runner is running and running, and they're like, wow, man, I'm dying out here. It's really hard. Then that person catches their second wind. And when they catch their second wind, what formerly was hard becomes easy. Let's think about that in terms of long-term care and what David was saying. You want to know what's hard? Trying to make a battered, broken institutional system operate in as humane a way as possible. That's what's hard. Getting your second wind means doing it differently, shifting to a new era, a new way, a new approach. And I want to say, for all of you in the room, and I know it's some of you, but not all of you, if you have a part of your organization that hasn't yet shifted to greenhouse, should really consider embracing the legacy blueprint that's been developed to help you bring the rest of the organization forward so the second wind doesn't just belong to the people in the greenhouse. One of my concerns has always been that although I think greenhouse is awesome and great, I worry about the people who remain in the other building in the old way. And I remain concerned that we need to attend to their needs and to the needs of the people working with them. So hear me on that. The second thing is about the second wind in your own life. And the way we live now, I can even address people in the room who are in your 20s. Yeah, you're already on your second wind. But for a lot of us, a second wind in life means a willingness to look at your current career, your current work, your current life arrangement, and really ask in as honest a way as you can, what's next? This is one of the lessons I think that the greenhouse movement teaches us, is we have the power to ask what's next. And if we really work to find the answer and we really embrace it, it changes everything. So if you have a career or like years of work in a broken institutional system and you say, what's next? And then you really embrace it, your life changes. And I'm saying the same thing to you, very same thing to you, in your own personal life. Take inspiration from the greenhouse and ask, what's next for me? The only thing we know, the only thing we can be certain of, is that the future of healthcare and the future of aging and the future of elders and their families in our society will not be like it is today. That's all we know. We know that this, what we know today, will not last. We know that there's thousands of antiquated long-term care buildings out there that will be closed, that will be turned into office buildings or something. I don't know what will happen to them. We know that change is coming, and the future belongs to those who are willing to ask, what's next? So, in your own life, in the work you're doing, in your relationship with insurers and acute care partners in your community, start asking what's next. I want to point at the close of my comments to this man right here, Steve McAlelly, who's here representing the very fine people, many very fine people in his organization. And Steve had the opportunity to be a skillful custodian of a well-run organization that had a lot to be proud of. And instead, he asked, what's next? And I think we can all be inspired by that. We can all take that into ourselves as part of the shared story and find our second wind, find the future for all of us, and spread greenhouse, not just house by house, but city by city and system by system. You are here to change the world. I'm relying on you. Shabazim, I'm relying on you. Guides, I'm relying on you. Nurses, sages, program officers, directors, CEOs, I'm relying on you. We need you. And it is my honor and my privilege to walk us beside you as we enter into a glorious future. Thank you. It will not be easy. As Jane said, it won't be short. It's worth the rest of your career if you will devote the rest of your career to this, and in some cases, the rest of your life, you will make a difference. Thank you.